If I told you that a bunch of French developers who used to work at Ubisoft were getting together to make a game, you'd probably assume it would be another infested grooming sim with copy-paste bandit camps and a 5-minute apology to the climate gods. Well, that was my biggest fear when I first heard about the dev team for Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and even more when I saw it getting glazed so hard in games media. So I decided to dive headfirst in and see for myself, is Expedition 33 actually good? Or is it just another piece of modern woke trash?
What's up, boys? So I'm not able to play everything, and JRPGs are completely out of my wheelhouse, so I asked my buddy Jack to review this game for us. The dude has been canceled multiple times, so you know he's legit, and honestly, he's kind of an expert when it comes to JRPGs. So here's Jack's review of Clair Obscur Expedition 33.
Let's start by looking at the characters, because this was actually the first red flag for me going in. Just from the trailers in the first hour or so of gameplay, you can already tell that this game is going to be pretty heavy on the feminine side. You play as a dude, so points for that. And he's confirmed as straight right in the very intro of the game, so that's good too. But other than him, your party is 2 other women and a 16-year-old girl. Already, my Epstein radar started pinging like crazy when I saw that. But the good news is that the relationship the game shows with her is actually really wholesome. There's a very strong big brother, little sister dynamic between the main male character and her throughout the whole game, with no weird stuff at all, surprisingly. The other 2 female characters are also close to normal, at least as close as 2025 can do. Nobody's gay, there are options to romance both of the adult women, though it's not very well developed, and they have very clear backstories of being straight. They're not even weird girl bosses either, other than just being good at combat, but that's more of a game mechanic side. Their characters are mostly feminine, with a few interspersed scenes of Mary Sue nonsense, but for the most part, they aren't as bad as I was expecting. They talk about family, marriage, children, and for the one who was married, even about her incredibly deep devotion to her husband. Really, the only woke tick box thing that stood out to me about the women was that they inexplicably made them non-white. They didn't go full Dustborn or anything, but they made one of the women dark-skinned. She's not quite black, not quite Indian, just ambiguously brown in that modern diversity-safe way. The other one's East Asian for no reason. This isn't 2025 Tokyo, guys. It's supposed to be in 19th century France. They don't do any goofy oppression Olympic stuff in the game or ever talk about their skin color, but it's just such an odd choice for the setting. It looks like they did it to model them after the English voice actors, but I also have a sneaking suspicion that they knew they couldn't get a Game of the Year nod with an all-white cast.
What? No, we have a mission!
Oh, fuck the mission! Fuck the mission, Loon!
That brings us to the last character you get on your team, who's not human and is basically a furry. And this thing, it learns skills by collecting body parts. But it's always feet. Only feet. Not hands, not claws, feet. Every time. And he loves it. The camera lingers. The dialogue gets weird. I don't know if it's a dev's kink or a nod to the weirdos out there, but it's in there and it's not subtle. Apparently, the character is based on the dog of one of the developers, so I don't know. It's almost wholesome to base a character on your pet, but it also feels like a nod to Tarantino-style degeneracy baked into the lore. Now, yeah, the party kind of looks like a DEI grab bag. Asian chick, brown chick, talking animal thing. But here's the twist. There's actually a story reason for it. And no, it's not some lecture about oppression or intersectionality. The designs make sense later on, in a way that's more imagination gone wild than HR checklist. Still, even with a lore excuse, it gives ammo to the Tumblr crowd, and that's never a good thing. Overall, the characters have some slight nods to woke things, but I'm glad none of it is as overt as what we normally get. Nobody's gay, nobody's preaching stupid crap to the player, and nobody's doing push-ups for misgendering in a fantasy game. So, that's a bonus.
What are you doing?
Pulling a barb.
Oh, okay.
As for the story itself, I'm glad to report that there's no woke nonsense. The entire premise of the game is that there's a paintress who erases people every year based on their age. And each year, a group of people who are set to get erased the next year set off to try to fight their way to her and stop the ritual from happening. It's a story about survival, about defending the community, and sacrifice. There's no anti-European message, there's no anti-male message, there are absolutely no references to modern real-world politics. The story progresses as you get closer to the Paintress and prepare for the big confrontation, but most of the development is about the characters learning to work together as a fighting team and better understand one another. It's not actively masculine like the original Gears of War or anything, and there are a lot of scenes of talk therapy style emotion sharing between the women, but it doesn't get too gay. There's also a really strong side story between two male characters of camaraderie and brotherhood as they fight together, which is very well written and helps you dig deeper into the characters and understand them better. One part of the game that I found kinda gay though was that cosmetics were a big part of the items and collectibles throughout the game. Whenever you find an item or finish a quest, you might get something useful, or you might get a new dress or hairstyle for the characters. Sometimes you beat a boss, open a chest, and boom, congrats, here's a new bob haircut or a floral dress. I'm out here trying to kill a paint demon, and the game thinks I want to play Salon Simulator, Lesbians of Versailles. What happened to weapons? Give me a badass scythe, not a pixie cut. Anyway, the main story has several great plot twists throughout, right up to the end of the game, and it never disappoints. I really loved what they did with the story and how they used the star power they have as voice talent to bring players into the world. Every single actor absolutely nails their performance, and you, the player, learn more about the world and what's going on at the same time as the characters. So a lot of time you're seeing them act in the same way that you're feeling, and it creates a very powerful immersive link to the world. One of the other great things about this game and its storytelling is that it gives you a complete story experience if you play it straight through without doing any of the side content. A lot of modern games give you a watered down, unsatisfying version of the story if you don't do the side stuff, which is crap if you don't have a ton of time to play. I'm a husband and father myself, so I don't want to be forced to do a bunch of extra nonsense just to get the real ending if I don't have time for it or just don't feel like it. Expedition 33 gives you the whole thing without demanding that you do the side content, and I really appreciate that. That said, I was so invested in this game that I did do all the side stuff, and the extra story and information it gives you is awesome, really adding to the experience and fleshing it out, but more like an extended universe than something that you have to do. So, the characters are okay, and the story is good. How does the game actually play though? Well, the good news is that it's excellent. The game is a turn-based RPG at its core, so dealing with stats, numbers, and skill progression is a standard part of the package. As you level up, you get more points to spend on equipping skills, but it works kind of like Materia from Final Fantasy VII. You can only use the skills that you have equipped, and the points are the limit on how many you can equip at once. Everyone can equip whatever skills they want, but they're not equally useful. Being able to just hit harder on one of the girls is a waste, because their skills are dexterity or magic-based, not strength. It's obvious these developers knew that there's a significant difference in strength between a 33-year-old man and a 16-year-old girl, and their skills and abilities reflect reality in that regard, while still being gamified. These equipable skills can do all sorts of things, like making your status effects do more damage, giving you more health, or improving your counterattacks, which is one of the coolest parts about Expedition 33's combat. The whole combat system is based on very active timed button presses on every single turn. If you're attacking, you have to press buttons at a certain time to do more damage. If you're buffing, pressing the buttons at the right time will make the buffs affect more party members. And if you're casting a spell, the button presses can result in more hits, more status effects, or a whole different outcome sometimes. The most interesting part though is when you're on defense, because you can dodge or parry every enemy attack in the game. Dodging makes you take no damage and is easier than parrying. But if you get the timing right on a parry, then you'll do a very strong counterattack, punishing the enemies for daring to mess with you. In fact, if you're skilled enough at the game, you could theoretically play the entire game and take no damage, which is awesome. I like games that have a high skill ceiling and it's also learnable, and that's exactly what Expedition 33 offers. Each enemy in the game has their own set of attacks and animations, and if you learn them, you can dodge or parry every single time. There's a difficulty setting to make it easier or harder, but it just makes it a bit more forgiving by changing the amount of damage you deal or take. You still have to learn how to actually play the game if you want to do well at it. It reminds me of the games from the 90s and the 2000s when there was no "everybody wins, get your fuzzy few-fews" nonsense. You either learn to play or you fail until you learn. The coolest part though is when it starts to click for you and you begin walking around higher level zones, just trouncing enemies way stronger than you by skill alone. Speaking of zones, this game brings back a classic JRPG staple that I love, the world map. After the prologue, it opens up onto a world map that lets you explore, fight enemies, find items, and even find secret areas. It feels like the world maps from old PS1 RPGs, if y'all still remember those, and it's awesome. It gives you a feeling of how the whole world fits together and makes it into a more cohesive experience than if you just moved zone to zone like most modern games. Each one of the zones that you find and visit are meticulously crafted to be a fantastic experience. They're just the right amount of linear so that you know where to go, and just open enough that you feel like you can explore and really interact with the world. Sometimes I found myself wanting a mini-map to keep me oriented, then I remembered that I'm a big boy and I can look around for landmarks to navigate by. Each zone has its own personality and feeling, as well as history and story that you can discover. And that history is a really big part of the game's story. As you play, you'll run across these journals left by previous expeditions, usually telling a story about what they experienced or how their group fractured, and sometimes even how they died, as written by a last survivor. These journal entries, along with the zones and the evidence of the battles and dead bodies you find, tell an incredible story and really immerse you into the world in a way that I don't remember any other game doing. For example, at one point I crossed a bridge and found a huge monster guarding a journal. When I read it, I learned that one of the former teams had laid themselves together to form a bridge in their final moments. Then I realized that bridge I just crossed, it was made of their corpses. If that's not some metal shit, I don't know what is. Definitely not approved by an HR board. There are dozens, maybe even over 100 moments like this throughout the game where a realization hits you of what exactly you're seeing or what's happening, and every time it draws you more and more into the world and story, immersing you into the lore and the emotion that it creates. The last time I felt this attached to a world and characters was back when I played Lost Odyssey on the 360, and that's high praise.
Learn from the ones who came before.
And lay the trail for the ones who come after.
The overall presentation of Expedition 33 is nothing short of amazing. Graphically, the game outshines most AAA trash being released these days in both form and function. The art style is inspired, the actual graphical fidelity is through the roof, and the performance is rock solid. I played it on a PS5 and I didn't have a single crash the whole time. The design of each character is unique, each zone is distinct, and each of the 50 or so enemy types has its own completely different style and moveset. The animations, while not always predictable, look incredible and always telegraph in some way so that you can dodge or parry. The environmental details are so incredible and well made that you begin actually looking past insane things like the bridge I mentioned earlier. The world itself genuinely looks and feels alive, and the game is presented in a way that makes you feel like you're really in it. The only thing that transcends the graphics and presentation of this game, though, is the soundtrack. I don't know if this game will actually win Game of the Year, because there's so many retarded people voting on stuff like that, but I'll be shocked if the soundtrack doesn't sweep the awards. It's honestly one of the best game soundtracks of all time, and it does a phenomenal job of accenting the different scenes in the game. An emotional scene of someone sacrificing themselves, soaring vocals over perfect orchestral arrangements, time to wreck shit in battle, driving drums and brass like a French warband marching. Climactic boss battle? Well, that's actually impossible to say because every boss has their own theme. Yes, that's insane. And yes, every one of them is a banger. There's not a single moment in this whole game where the music doesn't hit like a freight train. Absolutely stellar, start to finish. Overall, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a truly excellent game that manages to avoid most of the modern woke problems that plague other games. They do still have some odd racial diversity, a questionable furry-type character, and a lot of feminine storytelling energy in the whole found family and talk therapy tropes. But In the context of the overall game, these points are fairly minimal and don't really detract from the enjoyment of the game. Most of all, though, the game never talks down to its audience. It doesn't lecture or patronize, and it respects the audience's intelligence. So, just how based is Expedition 33? I give it a based score of A-. It's not Chad versus the gay Nazis tier, but it's a hell of a lot more testosterone friendly than 99% of the limp rainbow-splashed garbage clogging the Game Pass store. And unless the points I brought up in this video really turn you off, I can safely recommend this as a great game to play and never have to worry about real-world politics in it. Bottom line, this is a game made by artists, not activists. Yeah, there's a few choices that feel modern, but none of it gets in the way of the fun, the story, or the gameplay. No lectures, no identity politics, just a damn good RPG. And in 2025, that's rare enough to be celebrated.